There's a massive power struggle happening right now that's totally reshaping our digital world. The European Union has basically declared a regulatory war on big tech, and the first shots have definitely been fired. So what's really going on here? Let's get into it.
It all kind of kicks off with a number like this one, 120 million euros. Now that's not a lottery jackpot. Nope. That is the fine the European Commission just slammed on Elon Musk's X. And you can bet a number that big is meant to send one very, very clear message. But here's the thing. This isn't just some one-off penalty. This fine is just the latest shot in what's become a full-blown crackdown by Europe on big tech. We're talking about a long-running saga that is seriously heating up.
Okay, so how did we even get here and where is all this headed? Here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that massive warning shot. Then we'll dive into the EU's new digital rulebook. After that, the big transatlantic standoff it's causing. We'll also talk about why this is about way more than just money. And finally, we'll look ahead to a crucial test that's right around the corner.
All right, let's start with that 120 million euro warning. And let's be clear, this is not just posturing. This is the EU basically saying the time for just talking is over. The era of real enforcement with some very serious financial pain, yeah, it's here.
Now, what's really interesting here is the pattern that's emerging. See, this penalty against X didn't just pop up out of the blue. Just 3 months ago, Google got hit with an absolutely staggering 2.95 billion euro fine. So you can see it, right? There's a clear and escalating pattern of enforcement. The EU is definitely building momentum.
So you might be wondering, where is the EU getting all this firepower from? Well, to get this whole fight, you really have to understand their new digital rulebook. You can think of them as the weapons they're bringing to this standoff. Okay, weapon number one is something called the Digital Markets Act, or the DMA. The easiest way to think about this one, it's all about fairness. It's designed to stop the biggest of the big tech platforms, the so-called gatekeepers, from using their immense power to just shut out smaller competitors. And then you have weapon number two, the Digital Services Act, or DSA. This one's different. It's all about safety and accountability. It puts the responsibility squarely on the big online platforms to get serious about policing and removing illegal and harmful content from their sites. And, you guessed it, this is the very law that X just got fined under. And you can really see the EU's two-pronged attack perfectly here. On one hand, you've got the DMA, targeting the market power of these giants to ensure fair competition. On the other, the DSA is targeting their content policies to create a safer online world. So, two different laws, but one single overarching goal, to finally rein in big tech. Now, as you can probably imagine, this whole crackdown has kicked off a major transatlantic standoff. I mean, this is going way beyond just companies and regulators now. It's turned into a full-on political power play between Europe and the United States. And this whole thing pits two very different positions against each other. The EU is framing it as digital sovereignty, their right to set the rules for their own market. But the US government is pushing back, and pushing back hard, even using things like steel tariffs as a bargaining chip to try and get the EU to weaken these digital rules. But Europe is holding firm. The EU's top antitrust chief, Teresa Ribera, put it bluntly. She said competition law should never be a bargaining chip. For the EU, this isn't about politics or trade. It's a fundamental matter of principle. And that right there, that gets us to the absolute heart of the issue. This fight is about something so much bigger than just fines and corporate profits. It really comes down to fundamental principles. So let's just ask the big question. What is truly on the line in this confrontation? I mean, why would the EU be willing to risk a major trade dispute with its biggest ally over this? Well, this quote from law professor Daniel Mandrescu, it just nails it. For the European Union, this is all about the supremacy of the law. It's the principle that rules, once they're passed, have to be followed, and that this principle is not up for negotiation or some kind of political horse trading. The fines are basically the EU's way of saying the rule of law is absolutely non-negotiable. So all of this is setting the stage for what happens next. And trust me, all eyes are on a couple of huge cases on the horizon that are going to be the real litmus test of the EU's power and its resolve. First up is the Google ad tech case. Regulators have called for Google to actually sell parts of its advertising business. Google has offered to make some changes instead. The EU's decision here is going to be a massive signal.
Then there's the big probe into Meta's new AI features for WhatsApp. The EU could potentially halt the entire rollout. And if they do that, wow, that would show they have the power to intervene not just after the fact, but before a new technology even gets deployed.
Ultimately, the decisions in these cases are everything. They are going to prove whether this new vigor in European enforcement is the real deal, or if the EU is going to back down when it's faced with its biggest challenges yet.
And that leaves us with one last critical question, because this isn't just a European story. This whole battle is setting precedents that could ripple across the entire globe, ultimately shaping the answer to one of the defining questions of our time. Who gets to write the rules for our digital world? The companies that build it, or the governments that represent all of us? The answer to that is still being written.